This is something that you're doing for yourself, but it's not your whole self. You're doing this so that you can maintain and be your best self. And that really helped me to think of it that way.
Welcome to the Evolving Past Alzheimer's podcast, where we are focused on bringing you information to help prevent from developing and improve from suffering with brain diseases like Alzheimer's and other dementias. I'm Dr. Nate Bergman, a physician and Chief Scientific Wellness Officer at Kemper Cognitive Wellness, and I'll be your guide on these sound waves. So whether you're a baby boomer who's worried that your brain wiring just isn't working like it once was, or you have a loved one with the disease, or you yourself have already been diagnosed and are wondering, what do I do now? You'll want to listen to this podcast. Each episode, we introduce you to the top doers and thinkers that are revisioning Alzheimer's, dementia, and just generally things in life's second half. If you have questions or comments, check us out on social media. To support us, go to patreon.com/evolvingpast and consider hitting the button and becoming a patron of this show if you find these episodes valuable. That's Patreon, Patreon, patreon.com/evolvingpast. So here we go. Let's get better. Welcome back to the show. We have an unusual episode I'm excited about. I'm excited about because this is the kind of thing we need to be talking more about what's real, less about what's hype, more about what's what people are doing that are succeeding. If you want to call it that are succeeding even with the diagnosis of Alzheimer's. So back in the summer of 2021. Episode 65, we had, who we're going to have on today, a patient of ours, a guest, Lisa, and her family, her two daughters, Natalie and Stacey, and they're talking to us from different parts of the country. So first of all, welcome, guys. Thank you for making time.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having us. Thank you.
So when we spoke last time, just to frame this for people, so this is somebody who lives in the Cleveland area and is in her sort of early mid-70s and has been struggling with cognitive impairment, mild cognitive impairment, got a diagnosis of Alzheimer's kind of cognitive impairment, and was sort of, just the classic sort of left out there with not really many options. And then found the work of Dr. Dale Bredesen, found out about who was kind of operationalizing that in the Cleveland area, Kemper Cognitive Wellness, and our team. And I'd say we started seeing each other when guys like in December, right before the New Year's of 2020, going into 2021, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
And then you guys made massive changes, which we talked about in the last episode with exercise and reorienting your whole life and trying a ketogenic diet. And we were aggressive about blood pressure control and looking for oxygen problems and sleep problems and identified sleep apnea. And you guys had just taken the so-called, the massive action. And then, that sort of left us in the midsummer, which is where I want to sort of kick the questions over to you. We were kind of, okay, what's next? Right? So you guys had, so Lisa, you had gone to Atlanta, kind of jump-started the program with your two daughters in Atlanta where they were living at the time. And we noticed some improvements, right? And we went through those. Where did that, so maybe I'm not sure who wants to start, but when we last talked, it was on the podcast, it was the summer of 2021. Can you guys kind of tell us what's now? When the time of this recording, it's shortly before Thanksgiving of 2021. And so it's 5-6 months in later. And what's happened since then?
Well, this is Lisa talking now. It was getting acclimated to my new self, my new way of doing things. So at the very beginning, it was very, was kind of functional in that I almost had to have a cheat sheet to know what to do, when, how, and to go about everything. And then wanting to do everything the right way. So I was on guard all the time to make sure that I did everything right. As things went along, of course, just like everything else, once you get accustomed to doing something, it becomes a lot easier. It becomes a second nature to you. It became part of my daily existence, or getting up and doing what I was supposed to do. With the help of Natalie and Stacey, encouraging and not letting me off the hook at all, because the hardest part is always slipping back and making sure that those things that come up, like weekends, special events, meeting with friends, all those kinds of things. That was the test. But having them staying on me about it has helped me a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really it's sort of amazing. We want to kind of unpack what you guys have done. So for Stacy or Natalie, can you kind of, from your perspective, talk about what the last 5 or 6 months, since our listeners heard from you, kind of like there's been a lot more work that you've done. Can you kind of describe what's happened?
Yeah, sure. This is Natalie. So I initially came to Cleveland to help my mom transition to Atlanta.
From
Sorry, from Atlanta. And so the last time we spoke, midsummer, we were, like my mom said, getting in. I think we were actually in a really good routine at that point in terms of making all these adjustments from the program, adapting them to now my mom living in Cleveland. And I think that was a really big transition because our whole setup for the program when we started was based around our townhouse in Atlanta, Stacy and I being there pretty much all the time, 24/7, outside of work. Um, and so there were some physical adjustments that had to happen in terms of getting my mom's house kind of set up for success, simplifying the refrigerator, simplifying the foods that we keep in the house, putting some reminders, you know, on little note cards here and there. So that was part of the transition. But we also had a personal assistant. I think she was a really kind of key part to the success at that point in time, who was like a house manager. And so Stacey trained the assistant, and she would come 5 days a week. She was just wonderful. She was a former lawyer who was going back to grad school. And so just a really smart person who could help us figure out how to really maximize efficiency, that then we could all kind of return back to our normal lives, somewhat.
So I want to stop. I want to pause that. So you guys figured this out in a way that many of my other, I don't know if anybody that I've ever had as a patient has sort of figured out what you guys figured out. So that was so the way this usually goes. Again, I want to contrast the usual dementia care versus how, Lisa, how you guys and your family have sort of operationalized your life. So you chose, and again, we've talked about this in the past. I remember, particularly you, Stacey, were like, because I was kind of, airing my skepticism, and, this is a lot. And you said, 1 second, we're all in here. And I said, okay, we'll see. I've heard that before. And you guys are all in, like all in. And started to see improvements. And that, of course, excites me because, and it sort of makes me hungry. What else can we improve? How much else can we do? And so we start to push more. And you guys did the hard part, which is the food, the exercise, the sleep. Like the hard part. The easy parts, the supplements and the medicine. Those kinds of things. I'm going to say the easy part. I just mean like the hardest part is changing the way we've done life. But you all approached this. Sometimes people start to lose independence, and they say, hey, my spouse, or hey, mom, you have to do this. We're going to bring in a caregiver. We're going to have someone force you to do this, and you guys took a completely different approach. You guys went out, wrote basically a job description out in the general marketplace, and looked for essentially what did you call it? An executive assistant or something? Stacy, can you tell us about the process there?
Sure. So when we were thinking about it, so when I first started, this is Stacy. When I first started looking at finding a person, I was going down the typical caregiver route, and none of those people in the positions really fit with my mom. I remember I called one place and they said, "Okay, well, if we put the pills in her hand, can she take them?" And I was kind of like, oh, yeah, no, my mom is driving. She's still doing meetings and committees, and she has a full life. So I just think in general that a lot of my parents' generation, the baby boomers, they are different than the generation that came before them, like my grandparents. My parents are very active. They are, you know, just have a very young spirit. They're very youthful. And so my mom often jokes, she's like, "Oh, I went there, it was all these old people." And so we kind of laugh about it. And so what I said, I was like, what we really need is like a personal assistant, an executive assistant, someone who is there to help my mom manage her schedule, help with the brain games, but someone more so that like she is working with and she is partnering with versus someone who is caretaking. That was a huge difference that I saw that we needed. We did not need a caretaker. We needed a personal assistant.
Yeah, so that's just that little. I know it seems maybe subtle to people like listening, like, well, I know what's really the difference, but this is someone that is basically Lisa's employee, as opposed to come in and this is your boss, which is often the way it seems, and that feels different for people.
All right, this is Lisa now. And it was good for me because the person was actually there. We were working together. It wasn't, she was
It's a
in,
partnership.
it's a partnership. It's a partnership. And
Yeah.
and when the person when she came the first time, she was accustomed. She didn't know, of course, who she was going to be working with and what was going to be happening. So we had to come to a meeting of the minds as far as what her expectation was for me and how I could help her by showing her, what I would like to see. So once she found out, we found out about each other, it all worked and worked well.
And I would
Right.
say that it worked well enough to the point that for me, this is Natalie. I kind of felt like, all right, my support, is kind of done in terms of physically being in Cleveland. So once my mom and the assistant got into a really good routine, things were just moving so smoothly. I felt like there was really nothing else for me to do. So I actually booked a plane ticket to go back to Atlanta, which is where I live.
And that was when?
And so that was the first week of August is when I booked that plane ticket. Like I was, planning to move back that first week of August.
Okay, and then what happened?
So,
So
Stacey, you could go ahead if you want to explain this part.
Oh, sure. So the plane ticket was booked for the 1st of August, but just to rewind a little bit, I think it was at the beginning of July. That is when we decided to move to the next level and to do, with Dr. Bergman wanted us to do mold testing in our home. Because mold can be a driving issue of for memory challenges. And so at the beginning of July, we worked with the company that we had come in, and they took samples from our basement, first floor, and the second floor, and we were testing for mold. And Natalie, I believe, one of the things that Natalie kept saying was that she believed that we were going to have a high indicator for mold. And I'll let Natalie explain why she felt that that was the road that we were going to go down.
Yeah, I think for me, I almost knew, I just felt it in my spirit, like 100% that this was going to be an issue. And the reason I started, I believe that to be the case is I started thinking about this is our childhood home. We moved into this house when I was probably 4 or 5. And so this is the only real home that we've known in Cleveland. And there were a couple things. One, um, I have struggled with migraines to the point that I started seeing a neurologist a few years ago, but I consistently had migraines. I would say more than what my average was
when you came home.
Right. Yeah. When I would come home to visit. So it was like clockwork that we would have a great first day or so. And then almost like the next day after the holiday, I'm in the bed all day because I have a migraine. And
How
then
long had this been going on, Natalie? Like how many years?
so since I could remember, I mean, honestly, because my neurologist was saying, we were trying to pinpoint a start date. And I could remember even back to when I was in middle school, I thought it was because I was going through puberty and playing sports or I was anemic. Like I remember that far back getting these really kind of, paralyzing headaches / migraines. Stacy suffered with allergies, but to the point where when Stacy finally moved out of state to Georgia, she's like, "Oh my gosh, this is so much better." I think Ohio weather really just torments me,
And if I could jump in, this is Lisa, and if I could just jump in and say this, we knew that we had some issues in our basement, which we would just handle every time the issue came up. We had no idea flooding issues in our basement. We had no idea that it was more than what we thought. We would take care of the issue and until it came up again.
So I was actually able to come over to the house, and you guys were kind enough to sort of walk me through what this was. And what you were explaining to me during the walkthrough was that the basement that you lived in, this house you were in for 35 years or something like that, 33, 35 years.
Plus years.
And so 2 or 3 times a year, it would accumulate an inch or two of water in the basement, right? And that's not uncommon in Cleveland. That's certainly not uncommon in the neighborhoods that you live in. These are some of the, sort of an older neighborhood where houses can be 50, 60, 100 years old. And so it's fairly common. Now, it's not a problem for everybody, clearly. But I know that, so we talked about your daughter having headaches. We talked about, and Stacy probably maybe has something for her own to add. But so this is something that's, years in accumulation. It wasn't like there was necessarily black mold everywhere all over the house. But if you just think about it now, the three of you, what kind of things did you see? So Natalie said she sort of just had this sense because of her own headaches and kind of the neurologists, and you think about the history of the house. Oh yeah, well, we've had water. We've had water a lot, And your computer was down in the basement, and the laundry was down in the basement. There was a bunch of things down in the basement that you were spending a lot of time on, right, Lisa?
Well, that's where we would hang out and have fun and do the laundry and just your normal, everyday computer was down there. It was your normal. We had no idea. We were shocked when we found out about the mold and in the walls and everything that was going on. We had no idea.
And I think, like, just to answer more directly, even when you were asking, like, what made me think that there was a problem, after now having lived in Atlanta, I purchased a house a couple years ago in Atlanta. And part of that whole process of the inspection and all of that, actually, when I was trying to sell the house, I had inspectors, and I had a guy that came, and he, because I was like, I think I see a little bit of mold in my basement. He came and tested, and there were several areas in that house that had mold, and I was so surprised because I only noticed one area visually. And so he explained that you can't always see the mold. And he talked about the need for a sump pump and all these things that were mold related. There was a person who was interested in buying the house that actually said, "Oh, if you even had a history of any kind of mold or mildew, I'm not interested because I have a child who's very sensitive to mold and mildew. So that made me reflect, because then I thought to myself, okay, I didn't realize this was such a big deal. And I also knew that we consistently had water in the basement for all those years, no sump pump, no professional, coming in to test or to remediate.
Just deal with it, take care of it,
Bleach the floors.
bleach the floor to the next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Stacy. We honestly thought that when the water came in, and my mom is like extremely clean. My dad would, anytime the water came in, my dad would, go downstairs with a
Routine. That was
with
the
a machine
routine.
to, suck out the water, and we bleach everything down. And we thought, okay, we've cleaned it up. We had no idea that there could be
But if I could say something too,
growing. Uh-huh.
if I could say something too, I think that it was when everything happened in the world, as far as I'm at home. Normally, I'm in and out, and with yes, I'm at home all the time. Any meetings are online. I'm at home, and I'm not a at home kind of person. But for a whole with the whole
year and a half,
and when they came home for Thanksgiving, they noticed a difference in me. I did not have any idea that there was anything different.
Yeah.
They noticed there was something going on with me, because I've been in the house nonstop, round the clock.
Natalie and I, we have a theory, and this is, it's not maybe necessarily medically proven by Dr. Bergman, but we both strongly feel that my mother's exposure to the mold is what really accelerated and drove what we were seeing, because I think that it was going on throughout the years with the mold. But when we really went over a cliff and actually said, wait a minute, something is wrong, was after she had been in the home during the pandemic nonstop. She was in the home from, what was it, March to, no, November. Like as my mother said, any other time she is out
And
and
about.
about. She
Yeah.
comes home in the evening. So I think that being locked in the home, not literally locked in the home, but in the home, majority of the time, is what really accelerated things and got us to where we are today.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's almost no doubt in my mind. I mean, I mean, I'm still, the proof that Alzheimer's is caused by mold is, I would say, is a little thin, but there's certainly proof that mold, mycotoxins, some of the volatile, organic compounds that are released by the mold, so to speak, the mycotoxins, are definitely harmful to the immune system. There's definitely an impact on sort of inflammatory cascade, and and it does seem to impact some people cognitively. There's some published articles about that. They're small. That it's a clear association with Alzheimer's is harder to say. However, so this is, I guess this, what we call this, is anecdotal, but you can't deny a person's experience. So you have that, you live in this house for very comfortably for decades, had been doing very well, obviously. And then 2020, you're nonstop exposure because it's the quarantine, and now you're declining cognitively. We start up. You move out to Atlanta. You come back from Atlanta the summertime, and so then what? What did you guys decide to do? Just guys to move?
So can I just add one thing
Yeah,
really
please.
quickly? So one point to note, anecdotally, is that so my mom was doing really well when we left Atlanta. I mean, it was amazing. She was almost back to her regular self. Another reason why we connect the mold is that once we got back over the summer, she continued to do well, but we started to see some of the
Decline.
same yeah decline again, certain little things, and we were consistently doing the same thing. So I think that is then another thing that led us up to say, connect, okay, wait a minute, what has changed? okay, we're back in the house. Okay, what's going on with the house? Let's do this mold testing. So that's just another im-
So
im-
sidebar.
important factor. So
Yeah.
um, moving forward, so we do the mold testing, and we get the mold testing results at the end of July. And that's when we learned. So I don't know what the technical term is for it, but anything over, I think the level was like, say, like a level 10,
Yep.
12, I think it was.
10 or 12. Okay,
11.
it's considered high for mold. Our basement was at a 37. So, the other two floors were at like a 24. So that is what, like three times, two times the amount
Yeah.
of what's considered high. So we were off the scales.
So just to make sure people are tracking with us, so this is something called a Hertzme test, which is based on sort of an air sample of, you could think about it as micro or DNA particles of certain kinds of molds or mycotoxins, right?
Yes.
Mycotoxins being the little baby products, sort of mold. And so if the cutoff, according to some scores, again, this is not super evidence based. This is, like what some people are moving with this hypothesis and are working with this hypothesis. Um, and it's certainly not this sort of the standard of care. But the ERMI testing, we call it a Hertzme2, HERTSMI, and this was done by certified indoor environmental professional who's he's a master's, in building engineering science and up in Chicago. And like you said, the cutoff score is typically about 11, and your score was 38 down in the basement.
Yeah.
So that's when we made the decision to sell the house, take care of the problem because we didn't want to, we want to be transparent. We didn't want to give that to the well, we're in the process of selling. We didn't want to just give that to the next person without, taking care of the problem. So we took care of the problem, but we also just made the decision to move.
And I would say that with that decision, just to kind of explain the rationale, because that's a really big decision. What we had to do was kind of talk as a family to understand, to weigh the options. So yes, we could remediate. The remediation estimate that we received was upwards of $40,000.
Yeah.
Okay? Remediate. However, it was kind of clear that because of where the house was built, this area used to be like a river or something hundreds of years ago, but everyone on the street, that particular street, has the same issue. So there wasn't like a level of waterproofing that anyone could guarantee that like we would not get water in the basement continuously, just, like we had. So, in our head, it's like, okay, well, my parents are both mid 70s. I won't say your age, a young mid 70s.
Very young.
But do you want to spend now, more time knowing that we're going to constantly be in this cycle of remediating, draining the water, and then also we know that we believe as a family that there has been this impact on our collective health, but my mom is primarily, the one that would be in the house. So it wasn't like a very like, oh, we'll just sell the house. There were several conversations, really hard conversations. And then also a cost, what is it called? The cost benefit, which is, okay, let's have some peace of mind, just kind of remove ourselves from the problem. And financially, it made more sense to do this than to just spend the next years, with $40,000 of remediation or, every year.
Right. My dad, he's a numbers guy, and he just quickly was like, "Hey guys, I'm not. Just to let you know, I'm not going to put another $40,000 in the house and continue to do the same thing over and over again." He was just like, "I would rather that we move and that we're in a house that's safe, where we're not having the issue, and we're on dry land." So
we checked everything in the new house from top to bottom.
Yeah. But I think the other part of it too, though, so there's the logical part of that argument, the numbers part, the checklist, but then there's the emotional part because it was really really hard for my mom. She was just like, yeah, no, we don't need to do this. Like, I don't want to move. We've been here forever. I mean, she loved our home. She loved
Neighbors.
our neighbor. We almost wanted to move our neighbor with us. Like, can we buy homes next to each other? So there was a huge emotional component to this that we had to
Sure.
like kind of move her along.
And so I would say that then picking back up with how did this work? Like, how did we physically manage it? That plane ticket, this is Natalie, the plane ticket back to Atlanta was kind of like, well, this isn't the right time to transition back to Atlanta because what we were facing ahead of us is we have agreed to now sell the house. However, there was immediate concern about getting my mom out of the environment as quickly as possible. And again, this was us, consulting with the professional mold and mildew company. We immediately went out and bought like HEPA air filters, things like that. However, we didn't know how long it would take to actually sell our house and find a new house. And so what we decided to do was to move into an apartment temporarily for 6 months. And that, again, the driving factor there is this is kind of precious time, and I think for us, it's like, regardless if it's proven that this is driving the Alzheimer's, I don't know if it was more so like, I don't want any of us to be in this house that we know that there's toxicity and that is harmful for us, but especially because my mom has been fighting so hard doing this program, we want to increase her chances of success by any means possible. So we moved into an apartment and then started the process of selling the old house, looking for a new house.
Which we're now in the new house.
Yeah.
New houses are still still in the process of selling.
So we really moved though in a whirlwind. Just to give perspective in terms of the timeline, we found out about the mold at the end of July. By August 11th, they were moved into an apartment.
Yeah.
By September the 15th, we closed on a new home. So this was less than 60 days
Yeah.
that we did all this. And then in the meantime, you've got all this transition of packing up the old home, moving into the new place, looking for the new home. There was so much like chaos, organized chaos, or just chaos in general. It was a lot, and particularly on my mom, my sister, and my father, who were actually in Ohio.
Yeah. Because you're back in Atlanta, coordinating a lot of this, organizing some of it, and also working full time.
Yeah.
Yeah, as is your sister, Natalie. Right?
Correct. Yeah, this was. How do it's like we're packing, we're moving, and I would add, and this just goes to show. I want to say that to a compliment to my mom, because you have to remember this is also the only house that she has been in for 35 years. So now we have moved to this apartment, and we had to make a conscious decision of how much do we want to relearn, meaning learning another part of town doesn't seem like the best thing to do. It's like, how can we keep this as simple as possible? So the apartment that we ended up moving into was 5 minutes away from our home. So you don't have to learn a new area. However, there were now it's new set of challenges. It's a brand new building that's like super cool and technical. So there's a electronic key fob, not a key. The mailbox requires an app on your phone, and even to swipe in visitors, there's an app for that. So I'm just saying that.
But the good thing was that it was knowing that it was a temporary.
Well, my mom did great with that transition, and it was just a matter of relearning it. But you think, man, we're already just trying to keep up with the basic health things that are required with this program. And now he's throwing a wrench into it in terms of now just learning how to get in and out of the apartment, a new space. But he really handled it well.
How long did that take, sort of to
Uh,
calibrate like that?
it wasn't very long. It was
Okay.
less time than we thought it was going to be. It was about 2 months.
Well, we
Okay.
were in the apartment for that
The
for about two
apartment was
months.
about 2 months.
I think
Yeah,
he means the technology,
the
how to learn
technology.
the technology,
Well,
right?
all of it. I mean, just all, like the time frame you kind of laid out from late July,
Uh-huh.
mid-August, then mid-September, you got you got a new house. But like part of it, I just remember talking to you here and there, intermittently. We would meet for either to iterate the treatment or just because like this was challenging on you guys as a family. Like, and we have to be. I think it's worth it to just just spend a minute to say like this is not easy. It's not like you didn't go to the doctor and get a pill and was fixed. It's like, and it still isn't, right? It's still work. But like what is, and I guess I'm gonna start with Lisa for this. Why um, why don't you throw in the towel? Why don't you just say, hey, what kind of keeps you moving and motivated, right? To do the work because you see results, because you have the good help, because like there's a there's a need to sort of get up every day. We talked about this last time, to get up every day and fight, even if it's for an hour or two to do some of the stuff. Like,
Yeah.
can you just talk about that a little bit?
Well, I think that I think part of is they would probably say it's my personality, and when I say that, I mean that at the beginning it's a blow because this is completely counter to who I am and what I do, and but it was kind of like a slap in my own face, which is I'm going to fight this. I'm going to do this. This is not me. So I'm not going to let this happen. And once I got to that, then I was able to really get into the program because the end result was I went from that momentary depression about, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. I mean, I can't believe this is happening. But I'm happy to say that I'm going to pat myself on the back. It didn't last very long because it's just not me. And so after I snapped out of it, then my goal was let's make this work. Let's get this. I had to adjust to having other people to help me. I had to adjust to someone coming to um, prepare the day's activities or whatever. Natalie and Stacy helped me a lot because they said, just think, people hire people to do this. Think of this as just your bonus.
Reframe.
So once I put that in my mind and thought of this as helpers that are here to help me get through this through like a bonus, and they emphasize that the rest of the day is yours. So
And I,
after go
oh,
ahead.
sorry. I will say just to for transparency, I think it's something though that we, just like anything else, I think we have like good periods
Mm-hmm.
where we're like all in sync, but then we also have periods where because of the chaos, especially with the moving, I would say that's the most difficult part right now is tackling all of these things pertaining to the move and then maintaining your health as your number one priority because moves are stressful just in general. I mean, moves are just, it's like one of the most stressful things in life. But now we're saying, but also continue
Add
to work
to.
out and also continue to take your blood pressure twice a day. And so I just to be transparent, it has been
It
challenging.
is
And I
challenging.
think that I feel that we go through these periods where it's like, oh, things are working great. Like, we don't need to do anything else here. We're done. Our work is done. And then it's like, no, actually, we backslid a little bit. We haven't worked out and things like that. The diet was one thing that became extremely challenging with the move because you've got stuff in three different places, so.
Yeah, I feel like, I was telling Natalie that I feel like we've lived 4 years in 1 year, basically. And
Wow.
I think that one of the things that makes it work for us is that all four of us, myself, Natalie, my mom, my dad, we're all achievers, kind of type A personalities. And so we just all pull together. And I think another thing with all of us is we just have like a fighting spirit of, we're not just gonna lay down and let life happen to us. Like, everyone is gonna have challenges. Everyone has challenges that come into their lives. And is it fair that my mom got Alzheimer's? Not at all. But it is her reality. It is what's happened with her. And since it is, like, what are we gonna do now? Like, this is the hand that we've been dealt. Everyone is dealt a hand in life. Okay, what are we gonna do with the hand that we've been dealt? That has been extremely important for us. And then the other thing, like Natalie said, is that I think that this past year we have, you know, the diagnosis, it has drawn us closer together as a family. There,
Mm,
there,
right.
there have been moments where all four of us have been have been completely done with each other. Like, just,
Yeah, sure.
we don't see each other. You don't talk to me. You don't talk to me. You don't
Yeah.
talk to me. Um, and then the next day it's like the group text message, like, okay, all right, so here's what we got to get done. So,
Yeah. Mhm.
um, yeah, that definitely has been part of the
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, and so, and again, I'm thanking you for sharing this because I think a lot of people go through this and they have those moments where they're just like, well, I'm ready to give up, and that it's not uncommon. It's like every other thing where people iterate and they try again, and it's not perfect, and they try, and there's this sense that you just go, you get the pill, you get the procedure, you're done. Like that's how it goes. And this is so fundamentally different that it's just like a sort of this constant part of your life. It's like a small part-time job to stay well. And this goes for all of us, but certainly, Lisa, for all of us,
That was
like
one of the
constantly tweaking. Go ahead. Yeah.
and that was one of the things that they pointed out to me. This is part of your day. It's not your whole day. This is not your. This is something that you're doing for yourself, but it's not your whole self. You're
Yeah.
doing this so that you can maintain and be your best self, and that really helped me to think of it that way. And as they said, you can still go on and do everything that you've been doing. And once they got that in my head, that it really helped me to move forward in a more positive way.
Beautiful. And then can we just ask for everybody, how so you're now in the new house. So you're out of the old house, out of the apartment, in the house, starting to get settled, starting to get unpacked and organized, or mostly unpacked and organized. And how do you guys feel like cognitive? Let's say just on a level of function compared to last year, compared to before we met last year. How do you feel like you're doing right now? Because we talked about, you had improvement, and then you saw some dips back when you went back in the old house. Now, how do you feel?
Well, this is Lisa. I'm curious and waiting to hear what they have to say because um, I always think back to the beginning when I didn't know what was going on with me. I didn't know about these changes. I wasn't aware. So I'm kind of curious to hear what they have to say because I feel that I'm doing pretty darn good, but I'm curious as to how they feel.
Yeah, I mean, I will say,
Not that there aren't some ups and downs.
no, of course, but I mean, when I think back about, we're at really a full year in terms of just like what we call the beginning, which is the discovery that there was a problem. So that's when my mom got the mild cognitive impairment diagnosis. And so I was actually telling Stacy that we found out about that diagnosis the very first day that I started a new job. And so it's like ingrained in my head. I was like 2 hours into starting a new job, and then I got the call from Stacy saying, "Oh my God, like there's a problem. And when I think about where we are, I just had my 1 year anniversary at the job, which is like the 1 year of knowing about this, challenge with my mom. I guess I'm just like, I just wouldn't have thought, no one could have told me that we would be here having a podcast interview where my mom is doing most of the speaking and, kind of.
And feeling good and feeling very positive about everything.
But also just sounding like herself. I think, more so. I mean, of course, I can't speak to how you feel, but I can speak to what I see and what I've noticed in my interactions with you. And I would say that like this time last year when we came home for Thanksgiving, it was just, it was like a shocking feeling where you just felt like, I felt like, who is this person? Like, this isn't the person that I know. And I also don't know if I had like such a strong conviction at that point that there was anything we could do until Stacy, started sharing the podcast with me about this program. But I would have never thought that we would be in such a good place exactly a year from where we started.
Yeah, this is Stacy. There's a huge difference. This time last year was really like she said, the initial beginning. Um, we got the initial diagnosis. I started going down the Google. What does this mean? What does this mean? Um, and then, I cried for about 4 days straight while Googling still. And, my sister cried, continued to cry. And I found Dr. Bergman and Kemper, and I thought, okay, let's just put this to the side. Let's put this in the back pocket in case we ultimately get a diagnosis, the diagnosis that I feared the most. Um, and it's been a huge difference. One of the things that I always tell Natalie is that it's unheard of. It's almost like a miracle that here we are a year later and my mom is doing better than she was last year. She's stabilized, she's regained some functionality that is typically unheard of with Alzheimer's patients. And honestly, I don't think if we had not have found Kemper and we would have went the typical route, I just I saw where we were going with on that route, and it is so scary the difference of where we would have been.
It would have been just hand me some medicine.
Yeah, hand me some medicine. I think we would have been at the point where we
They
were
send me
having
out the door.
24/7 care. You know, we were losing my mom, but we were through the program we were able to stabilize and get her back.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, I mean that's amazing. So you feel fortunate to be part of these kinds of stories, particularly this one. It's amazing. So I think just with the remaining few minutes we have here, can you maybe explain the how you guys have organized this the day, particularly the part of the day where your assistant comes in, the kind of the binders you've set up, the calendar app. Can you just kind of like how you've kind of worked towards a system that seems to be working for the family, like working for Lisa, and then also allow you guys to stay organized and helpful with it.
Yeah, sure. This is Natalie. I think that what we kind of learned just even from your program and staff, Dr. Bergman, is the person with the diagnosis is having to do, like physically, like all the work. We can't exercise for my mom. We can't have her lift weights. We can't,
Feed me.
I mean, yeah, like there's things that she has to do that require quite a bit of effort. And so our thought process was if we can organize everything that sets her up for success, that takes kind of the pressure off of, then having to really physically do these things. And so we've put together, and we've shared this with you, Dr. Bergman. We have a binder, like it's a personal assistant binder that has, we took the program, like your assessment, there was maybe 10 parts to that assessment, and we've got like a section in the binder for each part. So, when we met with the nutritionists and understood the keto diet, it's like, here's the information, that we can quickly refer to in terms of shopping. And when we buy our groceries, here's our list. The section that has, information about blood pressure. We have been tracking, my mom has been tracking her blood pressure on a little checklist where she writes it down in the morning,
daily.
and in the midday, and in the evening. We keep all those documents there for reference. So then when we come and talk to you or to the blood pressure specialist, we have a record of that. And then
we can also see if there are any changes
Right.
have occurred from the morning to the afternoon to the evening.
But overall, in terms of just the day to day, the quick day to day, we created a spreadsheet, not a spreadsheet, I'll call it a checklist for my mom that she literally keeps on a clipboard. And those are her 10 things, that she does every day. So, and she checks them off as she does them. So it's take your morning blood pressure, take your morning supplements, the smoothie with MCT oil. So we tried to keep that list as tight as possible, but that is that's my mom's list that she owns and manages, of course, with our support to say, hey, looks like you missed this. Make sure you get these things in. And then the same thing with the personal assistant. Steph created a checklist for her, the personal assistant. So every day she comes in, it is a very focused task list that aligns with the program assessment.
Right. This is Stacy. I think that the biggest thing was like Natalie was saying, my mom is execution and we are background operations, and I think that that's one layer to the program that we were really looking at, like how do we do all of this. And I think it's really important for the patient to have support in terms of someone helping them to operationalize all of the things that they need to put in place, because it's a robust program, but it's doable, but you've got to be like really organized, really structured. And so for our family, we had to think about how can we break this down into chunks that are manageable and easy to follow so that everyone can stay on task. Another thing I think with the binder idea that we came up with, my best friend a few years back was actually battling breast cancer, and I was with her through her breast cancer journey. And so one of the idea for the binder came about because she had a binder that had everything in it. And the reason why we like the binder is at any point, let's say, God forbid, me or Nicole, father gets hit by a bus, someone will be able to pick up that binder and find everything that you need to know about my mom, what medications she takes. Every single thing is in the binder. And it's important for all of us to know. All four of us have binders. There's a personal assistant binder, and then we all four have binders, so that we can answer any questions that may come about. Everything is in there. So structure and organization are key.
I also, just to add one last thing, the personal assistant that we've had now three, and this most recent personal assistant, all of her previous jobs were very traditional caretaking, meaning actually her most recent patient had Alzheimer's, and
she just stayed overnight.
Yeah, she stopped working with her because that person needed then 24/7 care. So when she started working with my mom, one of the things she actually told us a couple of weeks ago is that she really likes having the checklist, because this is different than how you would typically manage care, for someone with Alzheimer's.
Very much so.
I like that. I don't necessarily, she's like, I know this program is very comprehensive. I know exactly what I need to do to just, kind of get through each day. And she's like, I like just having the structure there. So I think it makes it a little easier. It's like more work up front to create some of these things, but it really maximizes efficiency once you introduce them into your daily routine.
And it also adds, I think, just like accountability, because one of the things with myself and Natalie, we're kind of, I don't know what you call it, they call them helicopter parents, we're helicopter children, we're always hovering, and so it's easy for us to like come in and look and see exactly like, okay, has the assistant done everything? Like there's accountability there, so
for
that if we
everyone.
see things are falling through, we can kind of circle back and say, hey, we noticed this. We need to make sure that we're staying on task with this, and also we can hold my mom accountable as well, as much as she
Oh, they really do.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh they do.
They
Right,
really
and
do.
so I know it's like it's so you've seen ups and downs, and you've seen generally speaking with the work, you've seen improvements, and you've made
Yes.
tremendous
Yes.
strides and sacrifices. So and it's exciting, and I think people need to hear the whole story, not just the highlights. It's like the things that lead the work, and the sort of suffering is probably too strong of a word, but the stress points that lead
There,
to
that's the word.
Yeah,
Sometimes,
because
yeah.
we're
Word.
because we're human, and so we're going to fall sometimes, and then we're at our best other times. But we're not perfect, so we aren't 100% gonna be on top of things, but we try. I try.
Absolutely, I mean, it is just amazing and inspiring. And with that, I just want to ask you, what's on the horizon? Like what's next for you guys? What's the next piece here?
I'm looking at them because they always have
Tricks up their
Mom, you
sleeve.
can tell
uh,
them about
well,
what you're going to be doing, volunteering.
okay. I must say that I'm at the point now that I've been able to get back to doing some of the things that I have been doing, um, and that is outside of me actually, because some of the committees and some of the activities are people are starting to you know bring those back. So I'll be participating in that, and I'm volunteering at the school that Nicole that my children attended. I plan to volunteer there. I said I would give them one day, so I'm working with a little girl. I think I'm starting next week. So I'm just getting back to being me again,
Oh my God, that's amazing.
and that's it feels good. It just feels good. It's good to look forward to it. In addition to that, then I've managed to continue, doing my workouts. So I'm doing that, and I added on another workout outside of the house at the JCC. So I plan to go there. So just a lot of things to just get back to being me again, I guess is the way I can describe it.
I think we're all adjusting to our new normal, and trying to get to a point where we hit smooth sailing. Natalie is going to be moving back here, and hopefully we're going to be able to operationalize everything with the assistant. We of course will be still going back and forth a lot to check in and to make sure.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Stacy, but I want to say that I really want to be able to just reassure them that I have a handle on everything, so that I think as part of being the mom, you want to make sure that you take care of yourself. But if you take care of yourself, you're taking care of them. They've done so much helping me to get this everything going. I just want them to be comfortable going back to their regular life, going on with who they are, so that they know that I'm doing what I had been doing.
Well, it's interesting you said that you're going to get back to you, and I feel the same way. It's kind of like I feel like I'm going to get back to me
To
as
you.
well, because when it's like moving back to me it's like a handoff of like,
Mm-hmm.
you got this, and the assistant has your back and you have the support here. So it's
And
like,
a routine,
yeah,
and
we get back to our lives.
get back to right.
Yeah, it'll be nice to hover from afar.
And they do hover.
That will probably never stop.
That'll never stop.
It's amazing, guys. I again want to thank you for your time. Thank you for your candor and willingness to speak to the world, essentially, with the story about what's real, but also about what's possible. Because part of this is just extending people's idea that just because you are handed this diagnosis doesn't mean you have to crumble inside and just witness this long goodbye. I mean, we're not talking about cures, but like we are talking about a fundamentally different way to move through the last year and hopefully this next year. And, and we'll just see, we'll keep working it and we'll keep working. So thank you so much for the hope that you're giving everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
for having
you.
us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bergman.
So that's our episode. I hope it was useful to you. Check out the show notes on iTunes or on our website where we've summarized key points. If you find the information here valuable, please consider giving us a 5-star rating on iTunes and leaving comments in the comments section. It will really help us bring this message to as many people as we can. If you have questions or comments, connect with us on social media. Finally, to support us, go to patreon.com/evolving past and consider hitting the button and becoming a patron of this show. That's Patreon, Patreon, patreon.com/evolving past. Thanks, and talk to you next time.